I've just come off an 8-night cruise on Royal Caribbean's Ovation of the Seas, and here are 7 things I liked and didn't like about the ship. Let's start off with a positive. The ship, both inside and out, is nice looking. The ship looks modern and inviting, with none of the colours looking too wild and distracting and make you ask what the designers were thinking. The Ovation is a nice looking ship. And now for the first negative. Toward the end of the cruise, the staff in the Windjammer would get on the loudspeaker and try to make a party atmosphere. That's not the bad thing. We were on holiday and we wanted to have a good time, but the problem was the time when they were doing it. They were doing it in the morning. I don't know about you, but when you're waking up, the last thing you want to hear is someone wanting to do a conga line at 8 am in the morning. We then have the people that are hungover. The last thing they want to hear over the loudspeaker is really loud music. Then, to make it worse, once it was over, the person arranging it asked everyone if they wanted to do it again. There was a resounding no, but they didn't listen and redid it. Here's a tip. Have the party atmosphere during lunch and dinner when people are ready, not when they are waking up or hungover. This is a big ship. It's one of the largest that comes to Australia. Most of the time, it didn't feel like it was at capacity. That's not to say that the ship felt empty by any means. You knew there were other people on board, but Royal Caribbean and the team on the Ovation did a fantastic job most of the time of managing crowds not being in one area. Watch out for the pool deck as it gets hot, and I mean really hot. Hot to the point where it wouldn't surprise me if you just stood there long enough, you would have burnt your feet. So make sure that you either get to the pool quickly or you make sure you're wearing something. I've been on other cruise lines like P&O where they have the fake grass on deck and it doesn't burn your feet. I don't understand why all cruise lines don't use it. For a ship as big as this ship was quite easy to navigate and not get too lost. There didn't seem like there was anything that was out of place, or unlike Carnival Splendor, the restaurants and bars that were just out of the way and seemed like they needed something there. Then if you did get lost, outside the elevators there was maps to tell you where to go, and once you stepped inside the elevator, the top of the elevators would tell you where major things were on each level that were accessible from that elevator. If you're like me and like to do your own laundry during your cruise, you're not going to be able to do your own. The ship doesn't have a self-serve laundry. Your only options are to either make sure you pack enough to last the full itinerary of the cruise, or your other option is to get the cruise line to do it. Not only is this ship big, but there are plenty of things to do. While port days had less options, as there were less people on the ships, there were still plenty of things to do. As for sea days, there certainly wasn't anything lacking as far as activities were on offer. There were plenty of things to do, even to the point where there would be multiple things that I wanted to do that were on at the same time. As for the nights, it had numerous shows and activities as well. Unless you're extremely picky or don't want to do anything, you will have options for something to do. There is one show I don't recommend though, Spectra's Cabaret. The singers and performers are very talented as individuals, but when combined, they just didn't seem to work together and it just felt like the whole show was put together. You then have the screens above the performers that move around and change. You just didn't know where to look, making it even more confusing. If you do want to see it though, the show is complimentary, but you do have to book. As our itinerary went to Mystery Island twice, we had 2 days of using the tenders. What surprised me was how painless the tender process was. There wasn't a need to get tender tickets, and we only waited in line for 5 minutes before we were boarding to take our tender. For a ship with so many people, this was fantastic. Okay, this one's more of a personal annoyance, but the onboard currency was the American dollars. For some of you, this might not be an issue, especially if you're from America, but I'm one of these people that thinks if a ship leaves from a country's port and the itinerary ends in the same country, it should be that currency, as most of the people on board will be from that country. If we're on a cruise leaving from America and coming back to America, I wouldn't have had an issue, but this was an Australia to Australia cruise. This can make some of the activities and purchases on board very expensive. I'll use bingo as an example. When I was on board, the Australian dollar was hovering around 60 to 61 US cents. A full game of bingo was 59 US dollars. Once you convert it back to Australian dollars, it was now closer to 95. I suspect this is why the last game of bingo still had seats left, unlike most of the cruises I've been on. The thing with this is that some cruise lines do it, like Carnival and Princess, and not just for the ships that are based all year round, so why can't Royal Caribbean do it? If Royal Caribbean ever does have a ship here all year round, I think keeping it in US dollars will hurt them in the long run. One thing to note is that anything you pre-book before you get on the ship will be in Australian dollars, so if possible, prepay as much as you can if you want it, just so you know how much you're paying. The variety of included food was fantastic, so much that since this was my first Royal Caribbean ship, we didn't even use any of the paid options. As for the next time we go on a Royal Caribbean ship, we might give one of those a go. But as far as the included options, unless you're extremely picky or have extreme dietary restrictions, you won't go hungry. But saying that, stay clear of the included steak in the main dining room. It was horrible, it was gristly and chewy, and I wasn't the only one in our party that thought it. I don't know if it was just that night and we had a bad batch, but I don't recommend it. The funny thing is, the minute steak that they had in the windjammer was a lot better and I thought was nice. If you do the main dining room at night and can't find anything to eat, they also have chicken breast, which is great. And now a shout out to our room attendant Yoga. He was fantastic. He was nice, efficient, and did a fantastic job. He is an asset to Royal Caribbean, and I hope you have him on your next cruise. They really pushed the post-cruise survey and to rate everything 10 out of 10. This wasn't only just on the last day, but as soon as we left the last port and still had 2 days left. I didn't like this. It didn't seem genuine, it was pushy, and to make it seem worse, it reminded us that the holiday was about to be over. The other cruise lines I've been on, they only remind you that you need to look out for the survey on the last day, and it was only usually by the cruise director and maybe by your room attendant if you saw them. But on Royal, there was more people doing it, even to the point where the kids' balloon animals had it written on it. I know they want you to vote 10 out of 10, but this seemed a bit much. The room was nice and modern looking, but there was one big problem that could be a deal breaker for some people. Have a look at this video here to find out what it was.